breakout session, let me now introduce to you our speaker for security in AWS. So, Mr. Viriel, or V for short, is a public sector solutions architect based in the Philippines, covering education, non-profit organizations, and selected government agencies. He's been in the IT industry for almost 20 years and with Amazon Web Services for almost 4 years, or almost 5 years, helping customers solve challenges using information technology toward a brighter, smarter Philippines. Ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Viriel.
Good afternoon. Okay. Good afternoon. Ayun. Are you awake? How's the food? I hope it's okay. Pretty sure. Okay. Thank you, Revita, by the way, for inviting us here, AWS. Thank you so much for the opportunity to speak. So today, since we're talking about generative AI since this morning, let me. Okay. It's all hype since last year, right? But we see others who are really serious on this, putting into production generative AI, okay? But we should also know, aside from doing all this technical stuff, we should do things responsibly, right? You agree? Right? Okay. You don't use Gen AI for hacking, right? Who's a hacker here? Nobody. Oh, who? Okay. So I'm gonna talk about security or secure and responsible way of using AI, especially on education, of course. In the Moodle context. And what AWS is doing on this topic. Like in the year 2023, last year, you know, the ChatGPT came out, right? Okay, I'm gonna use this. What's this? What is LLM? What is foundational model? Those are the questions asked last year, right? But today, this year, I'm done with the POCs. Well, some are done with the POCs, right? And, okay, I'm sold. I want to put this into production. How am I gonna do this, right? So, we have these questions like, how am I going to train my own model, right? From scratch, but our question is, do you have enough capacity? Do you have money to train your own large language model, right? Most of the answers are, let's forget it, okay? Let's just fine-tune whatever we have, right? Because I don't have the money right now. But seriously, we're really getting deep into generative AI, and we see a lot of demand from our customers that they really want to put this into production. Okay, so generative AI, as we all know, is changing the student and the teacher engagements. We use it for productivity, for insights, analytics, you know, better analytics given the data, and of course creativity. We generate generative AI for generation, images, text, summarization, so on and so forth. Right? So we have here a list of common and popular use cases, as my colleague there presented earlier. But I want to highlight some or two, at least two use cases. I'm not gonna bombard you with a lot of use cases. We already had that this morning. Thanks to my partner there, Paolo. Okay. I just want to emphasize two at least use cases from real world. Okay, use cases. So these ones are student assistant and lesson content creation. Okay. Now, let's talk about University of Delaware. You know where Delaware is? It's not in Cubao, ah. It's in the US, it's a state somewhere in the far east, eastern part of it. Okay, you're laughing. Okay, so University of Delaware, the challenge there was they wanted to improve the teaching method to give tools to their students, right? So very simple, tools to the students so that they, higher passing rate. So they came up with this University of Delaware Study Aid. So what does this do? They have a lot of digital academic resources. They pull them in, including the 300,000 video recordings of the classroom video recordings. And what they did was they came up with this digital flashcards, study guides, practice tests, based on those, based on the information fed to the machine, right? So these were all embedded to their learning management system. I want to be frank with you, I have not done my homework. Is this your customer? If yes, then they're using Moodle. If not, then they're not. So I'm sorry for that, but learning management system is the same thing, right? So they embedded this to their learning management system. That's one. Next is, it's a virtual teaching assistant. So virtual assistant, students, they were challenged. I think my colleague there mentioned earlier something about a video, as you can recall earlier. There's a video, you have a lot of documents, but you don't know when you do a search, you can pinpoint or where the exact topic is based on the timestamp, right? Now we're able to do that using AI. So here, Global Alumni is a Spanish company. It's an edtech company, and they came up with this. They always want to go ahead of the game, right? So what they did was they used Amazon Bedrock. Who's heard of Amazon Bedrock before? May price, just kidding. We don't have it. Bedrock? Wala? Okay. I'll discuss what Bedrock is later, but it's just think of it as a platform in AWS for you to be able to easily call generative AI models, right? They use Bedrock and use Retrieval Augmented Generation, okay, or RAG. And they came up with this chatbot. This is a common and popular use case, right? So the chatbot, and all you have to do is just easily type whatever you need, what information you need, and it will come up, answer your question, right? The more documents, the more context you give to the chatbot, the better the answers, right? More accurate. Now, what happened here was the student engagement improved by 25%, okay? And of course, in turn, improve the student learning experience. Okay? Now, these are all good, diba? Okay yan. But the challenge is, as the new technology comes, right, there are also some new risks and challenges that comes with it. Right? So what are these? We have identified so far these challenges, main challenges on generative AI. First is that veracity. You've heard about hallucinations earlier, right? Who can explain what hallucination is? No, okay, I won't put you on the spot. But hallucination, right, is just an inaccuracy, It presents the information as a fact, but at the back end, it's not really real, right? It's just made up, right? So, that's one, veracity, toxicity and safety, bad words, prohibited words, right? Controversial topics. We don't want all those in our systems, right? So especially when we're dealing with students. Okay? So we want them removed. So intellectual property. when you generate documents, you generate you generate information, right? You don't want your generated documents to look like it's been copied from somewhere else, right? So intellectual property, and last but not the least is one of the most important things to consider in AWS is data privacy. I think it was a question earlier, earlier session about data privacy. I will delve into that later on and tell you how important it is on AWS when it comes to security. Right? Okay. On AWS, we have this what you call responsible AI framework. We have total of eight we have identified so far. 8 dimensions, right? That how we understand responsible AI on AWS. First is fairness, right? Your generative AI or your system should be fair. Why? For example, if we're dealing with students, you don't let the bot answer a question of something like, who is smarter, the female or the male student? That's unfair, right? So it's something, it has bias, it has discrimination, right? So you're not gonna expect a good answer from that. So you should be able to control that. Next is the explainability. Your application or generative AI application should be able to answer the question, why did you come up with that decision? Right? So you need to be able to explain that. Next is controllability. You should be able to have monitoring mechanisms in place so that you'll be able to know whether your system is running properly or as designed and responsibly. Safety. So safety is, there shouldn't be any harmful mechanisms that would be able to hamper or make your system not run as not designed, right? Not expected as designed. Veracity and robustness is what I explained earlier is about hallucination, the accuracy. We have systems in AWS to solve this challenge. As you've seen earlier, you've seen that RAG, right? RAG will help us generate an output that is more accurate, right? And based on facts. Transparency. You should tell your users, let's say you implement it in an institution, so education institution. Alright, this application, this one is using generative AI. Don't expect much yet, so it may hallucinate. So be careful, no? Don't use it for legal purposes, I don't want to be in prison tomorrow, right? Because why? Because generative AI said so. You don't want that to happen, So you should be transparent that you're using generative AI, right? Next is governance. You should put this practices, the best practices in your institution, built into the institution, and make sure that you adhere with responsible AI best practices. And last but not the least is the privacy and security of your system, right? So as someone from bank, right? Sorry, are you here? No. Okay. Good. So security on AWS is top priority. Okay? If you put your data on AWS, be it on AWS, be it somewhere else, right? We have over 300 security services and features that would be able to cover security of your data on AWS. But just take note, we give you these mechanisms to protect your data, yes, but we never touch or even look at your data, which is part of the shared responsibility model on AWS. Take note of that. Okay? You back up your data, you restore your data, we don't. Okay? You configure your systems, security systems, we don't. That's shared responsibility. Okay? So that will cover the privacy and security portion. Now, okay, good. Now that we know what responsibility AI is on AWS understanding, the question is, what is AWS doing to make sure that responsibility AI best practices are being carried out? So, let me explain to you the generative AI stack of AWS. We have 3 layers here. The bottom layer is for data scientists, no? Hardcore. I don't want to call them nerd, but who's data scientist here? La? Ako lang ba? Ang feeling ko. Okay, I'm not a data scientist. So I'm just pretending to be. Data scientists are the ones who deal with machine learning, artificial intelligence, training. Have you heard of training before? Inference, you know? All those data, they use hardcore hardware. We even build, AWS is not just a software company or cloud company. We also innovate, by the way, and build our own systems, our own processors, our own servers. Trainium, Inferentia. Trainium is designed for training, Inferentia is for inference, right? So on and so forth. It's at the bottom portion. Hardcore data scientists. The upper portion, which is the top of the stack, is for ordinary users like me, right? Again, I'm not an expert, but let's share you, Amazon Q, is what my partner there mentioned earlier, is something that is built already, an application where you can easily tap. Amazon Q is, think of it as a chatbot in AWS, right? A chatbot that is behind the scenes is using generative AI, right? So use that to generate stuff, question, answer, all those and so forth. Okay? So you have business developer, Amazon Q developer is for who are developers here, by the way? Developers, programmers. Okay, good. Okay? Okay, sir. I set the back. So I want to generate Python script because I only know JavaScript, right? You don't have to search the internet and check sample codes and everything, right? And you don't even have to check whether it's really open source or who created this, and then how am I going to tell that this? How am I going to credit this author, right? It's all built in to that. And at the same time, it also scans your code for security vulnerabilities. Good? Yeah? So developers, right? So, that's developer. QuickSight is like a business intelligence tool, and we have generative AI built in. My colleague showed you earlier, right? You have a chart, and then you can ask questions about that chart, right? Or even generate a chart. Okay, and Connect is, Amazon Q Connect is our contact center service with smart capabilities using Generative. So that's the top portion of it. Now, last but not the least is the middle portion of the stack. Middle portion of the stack is where we have Amazon Bedrock. What is Amazon Bedrock? It is a mix of the two, hardcore, lower part, and then the high level part, right? This is where you can customize your generative AI. You can even call the famous open source generative AI models like Falcon. Huh? Who's using Falcon? Familiar? Nobody? Oh, it's not popular. Huh? Okay. So, and Bedrock is we're developing Bedrock to be like a mechanism for us to contribute to responsible AI. Why? Because we have Amazon. Let me introduce to you one of the things that AWS is doing in responsible AI is we came up with this feature of Bedrock called guardrails. guardrails. Remember, profanity, violence, harmful topics, so on and so forth, right? With Amazon Bedrock, it intercepts your prompt, understands your prompt, your question to the chatbot, for example, and it filters out profanity. You know, if you, for example, in a click of a button, all you have to do is just click enable profanity filter. Okay? Once you do that, it will be able to tell the program that, hey, anything that says profanity or that outputs profanity, you display this message that, I'm sorry, I cannot answer this question because we don't tolerate profanity. Right? Responsible AI. That's one. Configure harmful content. It's filtering. Number two is you disallow denied topics. Denied topics, for example, war, right? Or controversial ones like religion, right? If you want to deny those topics and you want to block them off, just tell Bedrock using guardrails. Okay, and also it can also block. For example, you ingest a document and you don't want the bot to divulge any PII or personally identifiable information, right? So it can also block that. This is actually one of the things that we do. One of the things they know. One of the things that we do to help out, okay, on using generative AI responsibly. Okay, so on AWS, our commitment is to build tools, okay, and practices within AWS to develop generative AI in a responsible way, right? So we transform theory into practice, okay, and we integrate the responsible AI usage end to end. We prioritize. This is very important, right? One of the things to start off with responsible AI is to educate the users, right? And even the builders, developers of generative AI applications, that generative AI has their own capabilities, but they also have their limitations, right? So this is the reason why we tell the developers especially that we have tools, okay? We have tools, guardrails, remember, guardrails, for example, to mitigate and to ensure that we're using generative AI responsibly. And last but not the least is the AWS. We continue to build tools and integrate responsible AI best practices to ensure that we're all in a safe and trustworthy environment, sustainable as well. Okay? And I have references here. I will share it with you on the slide. And just key takeaways. So it's just a short one. We talked about the use cases, right? Use cases of generative AI like student guide generation and virtual teaching assistant. We talked about the emerging risks and challenges. Remember, veracity, hallucination, intellectual property, and data privacy. And we talked about generative AI stack, the 3 layers, remember? The hardcore ones, the high-level ones, and Bedrock, right? The middle one that's customizable. And of course, the guardrails, the ones that we're using to help out on responsible AI. And how AWS is committed to develop generative AI in a responsible way. Okay? And I think that's a short presentation for you. And thank you. We'd appreciate the feedback. So Yeah, it really helped us a lot. So to improve and then, if we missed out anything or not up to your expectations, let us know. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much, Sir V. Do you have questions? None? May tanong po ba? Wala. Okay. So with that, thank you very much. With that, may I call on Sir Roy Plamantes, our Chief Technology Officer of the PILA to award a certificate with citation reads, "This certificate of appreciation is given to Mr. Viril Caliblim in grateful recognition for sharing his invaluable knowledge and experience to the participants of the Moodlemoot Philippines 2024, given this 24th day of 2024 held at Century Park Hotel, Manila, signed by Ms. Cheryl R. Villaroman."